The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched species evolve from simple creatures into spacefaring civilizations. They had conquered some and welcomed others. In all that time, they had never once doubted their power. The Council was made up of 7 elder species. Each one had lived among the stars for thousands of years. Each one commanded fleets of warships and controlled dozens of star systems. Together they believed they were unstoppable. Together they believed they knew everything worth knowing about war and peace and the nature of intelligent life. They were wrong. It began with a routine scan of the outer spiral arm, a region of space that the Council had long considered empty and unimportant. The sensors picked up something unusual. Radio signals, electromagnetic noise, the unmistakable signs of a young civilization learning to reach beyond its home world. Ambassador Velketh of the Scenari was given the assignment. He was considered the perfect choice. The Scenari were ancient beings made of living crystal. They were beautiful and cold, and very, very patient. Velketh himself had negotiated over 100 treaties in his long career. He had convinced proud species to bow before the Council. He had broken the will of stubborn rebels with nothing but words and time. The Council gave him 47 warships. It was more than enough. It was always more than enough. The Scenari crystal ships were works of art. They gleamed like diamonds against the black of space. Their weapons could crack planets open like eggs. Their shields could stop almost any attack. Velketh arranged them in the traditional formation of supremacy. It was a display meant to inspire awe and fear in equal measure. The journey to the outer spiral arm took 3 weeks. Velketh spent the time studying what little information the Council had gathered about this new species. They called themselves humans. They came from a small blue world orbiting an ordinary yellow star. They had discovered faster-than-light travel only a few decades ago. By Council standards, they were infants. The Council's first message to humanity was simple and direct. It informed them that they had been noticed. It explained that representatives of the Galactic Council would arrive to discuss humanity's future. It strongly suggested that humanity should prepare to accept its place in the established order of things. It confirmed that humanity would send a representative to meet with the diplomatic flotilla. Velketh found the response strange. There was no fear in it, no anger, no defiance, just calm acceptance and something his translators struggled to identify. Later, they would realize it was amusement. The meeting point was set at the edge of human territory, an empty stretch of space far from any star or planet. Velketh arrived first, as was proper. He positioned his 47 warships in perfect formation. He waited. His tactical officers kept their sensors active. They scanned the surrounding space for any sign of the human delegation. They expected a small fleet, perhaps a dozen ships, maybe more if the humans wanted to make an impression. Young species often tried to appear stronger than they were. The first sign was a ripple in space itself, a distortion that the sensors struggled to understand. Velketh leaned forward in his command throne. His crystal body hummed with anticipation. Then the human ship arrived. It came out of hyperspace like a beast emerging from a cave. The transition was not elegant. It was not graceful. It was brutal and loud, and shook the very fabric of reality around it. Velketh stared at his display screens. He said nothing. Around him, his bridge crew had gone completely silent. The human ship was enormous. That was the first thing that registered. It was larger than anything Velketh had ever seen. It made his flagship look like a child's toy. It made his entire flotilla look like insects buzzing around a giant. But size was not what made Velketh's crystal heart grow cold. The ship was covered in weapons, guns and missiles, and devices that his sensors could not even identify. They bristled from every surface. They pointed in every direction. The ship did not have weapons. The ship was a weapon. The hull was dark and scarred. It bore the marks of countless battles, burns and dents and patches where repairs had been made. This was not a new vessel built to impress visitors. This was a veteran, a survivor, a ship that had seen more combat than Velketh could imagine. "That cannot be a warship," whispered his tactical officer. The young Sonari's voice was barely audible. "It must be a mobile station, a colony ship. He trailed off as the human vessel began broadcasting its identification codes. HSS Prometheus, Titan-class dreadnought, first of the line. Warship. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Velketh forced himself to remain calm. He was an ambassador. He had faced difficult situations before. He would face this one with dignity and composure. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. His voice did not shake. He was proud of that. The view screen flickered to life. It belonged to an older female with gray hair and tired eyes. She wore a simple uniform with no decorations. She looked like someone's grandmother. "Ambassador Velketh," she said. Her voice was pleasant, warm. "I am Captain Elena Vasquez of the HSS Prometheus. On behalf of the United Human Federation, I welcome you to our territory. We are honored by your visit." Velketh studied her face. He looked for fear or aggression, or anything that might explain the monster floating outside his ship. He found nothing but polite patience. "Captain Vasquez," he replied. "The Council expected a delegation, a fleet. You have sent only one ship." The human smiled. It was a small expression, almost gentle. "We did not want to appear threatening," she said. Velketh looked at the Titan-class dreadnought filling his view screen. He looked at its countless weapons and its battle-scarred hull. He thought about his 47 warships and wondered if they would even slow that thing down. For the first time in his very long career, Ambassador Velketh did not know what to say. The bridge of Ambassador Velketh's flagship had become very quiet. Officers stood frozen at their stations. Screens displayed information that no one was reading. Every eye in the room was fixed on the massive shape that hung in space before them. The HSS Prometheus did not move. It did not need to move. Its presence alone was enough to dominate everything around it. Velketh's chief tactical officer was a young Sonari named Kethval. He had served in 3 military campaigns. He had studied warfare his entire adult life. Now he stood at his console with his crystalline hands shaking slightly as he tried to make sense of what his sensors were telling him. "Ambassador," Kethval said softly, "I am reading the human vessel specifications. I do not understand what I am seeing." "Explain," Velketh commanded. "The ship is approximately 12 kilometers in length. Its mass is—" "The sensors cannot give an accurate reading. The hull appears to be constructed from materials we do not recognize. The power output from its reactors exceeds anything in our database." Kethval paused. His voice dropped even lower. "And the weapons, sir. I count over 800 visible weapons platforms. There may be more that are hidden or retracted." 800 weapons platforms. Velketh's entire flotilla carried perhaps 200 combined. "What kind of weapons?" he asked. Kethval shook his head. "I do not know. Some I recognize. Missile launchers, energy projectors, kinetic accelerators. But others," he gestured helplessly at his screen. "There are devices I have never seen before. The computer cannot identify them. They operate on principles that should not be possible." Velketh absorbed this information in silence. Around him, his crew watched and waited. They were looking to him for guidance. He had none to give them. The communication channel with Captain Vasquez remained open. The human woman sat patiently in her command chair, apparently content to wait while the aliens processed what they were seeing. There was no arrogance in her expression, no triumph. She looked like someone waiting for a friend to finish reading an interesting book. "Captain Vasquez," Velketh finally said, "your vessel is impressive." "Thank you, Ambassador. The Prometheus is our newest Titan-class ship. She was commissioned just last year." Vasquez smiled slightly. "We are quite proud of her."
"You said she was the first of her line. There are others?"
7 more currently in service, 12 under construction. The human's tone was casual, conversational, as if she was discussing something ordinary. "The Federation considers the Titan class essential to our defense strategy." Defense. The word echoed in Velketh's mind. Humans had built these monsters for defense. Against what? What enemy had they faced that required weapons like this? "If I may ask," Velketh said carefully, "what threats has your species encountered that demanded such extensive military development?" Captain Vasquez was quiet for a moment. Something flickered in her eyes. It might have been sadness. It might have been something else entirely. "Each other," she said simply. Velketh did not understand at first. His translator must have made an error. "I'm sorry. Did you say each other?" "Humans have always been at war, Ambassador. For as long as our history records, we have fought ourselves. Tribe against tribe, nation against nation, world against world." Vasquez leaned back in her chair. "When we reached the stars, we brought our conflicts with us. The solar wars lasted 60 years. The colonial rebellions lasted another 40. The corporate wars, the resource conflicts. The Great Unification." She gestured toward the walls of her bridge. Velketh noticed for the first time that they were covered with markers and flags and symbols he did not recognize. "The Prometheus carries battle honors from 17 major engagements," Vasquez continued. "Every scar on her hull was earned fighting human enemies. Every weapon system was designed to defeat human defenses. We built these ships to win against the most dangerous opponent we had ever known." "Yourselves," Velketh whispered. "Yes," Vasquez nodded slowly. "We are very good at war, Ambassador. We have had a great deal of practice." The implications of her words spread through Velketh's mind like ice forming on crystal. The Council had conquered dozens of species over the millennia. Most of them had surrendered after a single demonstration of power. The stubborn ones had required actual combat. None of them had lasted more than a few years against the Council's combined might. But humans were different. Humans had fought wars lasting decades, wars against opponents who knew every tactic they did, who matched them weapon for weapon and strategy for strategy, wars where defeat meant extinction and victory meant nothing more than the chance to fight again. And they had not just survived. They had built weapons so terrible that even the winners feared them. "The Council has ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years, Velketh said. He was not sure why he felt the need to say it. Perhaps he was trying to convince himself. "That is impressive," Vasquez agreed. "Truly. The Federation has only existed for 200 years. We are very young compared to your species. We have conquered many civilizations. We have never been defeated." "I believe you." There was no challenge in her voice, no mockery, just simple acknowledgement. "The Council is clearly powerful. We respect power, Ambassador. We understand it very well." Velketh looked at the Prometheus. He looked at its weapons, and its scars, and its terrible beauty. He thought about what his flotilla would look like after engaging that ship in battle. He imagined crystal hulls shattering, officers screaming, energy beams cutting through his finest warriors like light through fog. "Why did you come alone?" he asked. "You could have brought your other Titan ships, your entire fleet. Why just the Prometheus?" Captain Vasquez smiled again. It was the same gentle expression she had worn since the conversation began. "Because we wanted to make a good first impression," she said. "We did not want you to feel threatened. We did not want you to think we were being aggressive or hostile. The Federation genuinely hopes for peaceful relations with the Council. Her eyes met his through the view screen. But we also wanted to be honest with you, Ambassador. We wanted you to see what we are capable of, what we have become. It seemed only fair. Fair. The word seemed absurd. There was nothing fair about the Prometheus. There was nothing fair about a species that had forged itself in endless war and emerged with weapons that made the Council's finest warships look like toys. I see, Velketh said. He did not see at all, but he was beginning to understand something important. He was beginning to understand that the Council had made a terrible mistake. The shuttle that carried Captain Vasquez across the gap between ships was small and plain. It had no weapons, no shields that Velketh's sensors could detect. It looked like something a merchant might use to transport cargo. Ambassador Velketh found this deeply unsettling. A commander who left her massive warship to board an alien vessel alone in an unarmed shuttle was either very stupid or very confident. Looking at Captain Vasquez as she stepped onto his deck, Velketh was certain she was not stupid. She came with no guards, no assistants, no protective equipment. She wore the same simple uniform she had worn on the view screen. Her gray hair was pulled back from her face. Her hands were clasped behind her back. She looked around the crystal corridors of the Scenari flagship with open curiosity. "Beautiful," she said softly. "I have never seen anything like this." Velketh studied her. She seemed genuinely impressed by the ship's architecture. There was no mockery in her voice, no hidden meaning. She was simply appreciating something she found lovely. "The Scenari have crafted crystal ships for 10,000 years, Velketh said. "Our vessels are considered works of art throughout the Council." "I can see why." Vasquez reached out and touched a wall. Her fingers traced the smooth surface. "On Earth, we build with metal and stone and glass. Nothing this elegant. Your species has a gift." It was flattery. Velketh knew it was flattery. Yet somehow it did not feel false. He led her to the diplomatic chamber. It was a round room with walls of pure crystal that shifted colors as light moved through them. A table stood in the center, surrounded by floating chairs designed for Scenari bodies. Velketh had ordered a human-style chair to be constructed for his guest. It was a simple thing, made of crystal like everything else, but shaped to fit the human form. Vasquez sat down without comment. She did not seem bothered by the alien surroundings. She did not seem bothered by anything. "Shall we begin?" she asked. Velketh settled into his own chair. His crystal body hummed softly as he organized his thoughts. He had conducted hundreds of negotiations. He had broken the will of proud warriors and stubborn rulers. He knew exactly how these conversations were supposed to go. "The Galactic Council welcomes humanity to the community of civilized species," he began. "We recognize your achievements and your potential. We believe that together we can build a future of prosperity and peace." Vasquez nodded politely. "Thank you. The Federation shares these hopes. However," Velketh continued, "certain matters must be discussed. The Council maintains order in this galaxy. We have established laws and traditions that all member species must follow. We have expectations." "Of course." Vasquez's expression remained pleasant. "Please, explain these expectations." Velketh outlined the standard terms: tribute payments to fund the Council's operations, trade agreements that would benefit the elder species, military limitations to ensure that younger species did not disrupt the balance of power, political integration that would give the Council authority over human affairs. He spoke for nearly an hour. He explained the history of the Council. He described the fate of species that had refused to cooperate. He made it clear, in the most diplomatic terms possible, that humanity had no real choice in the matter. When he finished, Captain Vasquez was quiet for a long moment. She looked down at her hands. She seemed to be thinking. Ambassador, she finally said, I appreciate your honesty. You have been very clear about what the Council expects. Now, please allow me to be equally clear about what humanity expects. Velketh gestured for her to continue. We expect to be treated as equals. Her voice was still calm, still pleasant. But there was something underneath it now. Something hard. We expect our territory to be respected, our laws to be honored, our people to be left alone unless we choose otherwise. That is not how the Council operates, Velketh said carefully. Perhaps it should be. The words hung in the air between them. Velketh felt his crystal body grow colder. You misunderstand your position, he said. The Council commands 47 warships in this system alone. We have thousands more spread across the galaxy. Humanity has been a spacefaring species for mere decades. You cannot possibly stand against us. Vasquez smiled. It was a sad smile, almost apologetic. Ambassador, may I tell you a story? Velketh hesitated, then nodded. 300 years ago, humanity nearly destroyed itself. We had weapons that could end all life on our home planet. We came very close to using them. Multiple times. She paused. Do you know what saved us? I do not. Nothing. Her voice was quiet. Nothing saved us. We used them. We burned our own cities. We poisoned our own lands. We killed billions of our own people. She looked up at him. Her eyes were ancient, tired. We did it again and again. We rebuilt, and then we destroyed everything again. It took us 200 years to finally stop. Velketh said nothing. He could not think of anything to say. The Prometheus was built from the ashes of that history, Vasquez continued. Every weapon on that ship exists because humans invented ways to kill other humans. Every defense system exists because humans invented ways to overcome previous defenses. We did not develop our military technology to fight aliens, Ambassador. We developed it to survive each other. She leaned forward slightly. The Council has ruled peacefully for 12,000 years. You have grown comfortable. You have forgotten what war really looks like, what it costs, what it takes. Her voice dropped lower. We have not forgotten. We remember every war, every weapon, every lesson learned in blood and fire. Is that a threat? Velketh asked. No, Vasquez shook her head. It is an explanation. Humanity does not want war with the Council. We have had enough war to last 1,000 lifetimes. We want peace. We want trade and friendship and cooperation. We want to be good neighbors. She stood up slowly. But we will not be conquered. We will not pay tribute. We will not submit. And if the Council decides to force the issue, she glanced toward the viewport where the Prometheus waited. Well, we have had a great deal of practice at war. The Council has not. Velketh looked at the small human woman standing before him. She did not look dangerous. She did not look like a warrior. She looked like someone's grandmother. But her eyes told a different story. Her eyes had seen things that Velketh could not imagine. I will need to consult with the Council, he said finally. Of course. Vasquez inclined her head politely. Take whatever time you need, Ambassador. Humanity is very patient. We have learned to be. She turned and walked toward the door. At the threshold she paused and looked back. One more thing, she said. The Prometheus is just one ship. We sent her because we wanted to be polite, because we hoped for a peaceful conversation. Her sad smile returned. Please do not mistake our politeness for weakness. That would be unfortunate. She left without another word. Velketh sat alone in the diplomatic chamber for a very long time. The crystal walls shifted through colors he did not see. His mind was far away, contemplating things he had never considered before. Things like defeat, things like fear, Things like the possibility that the Council had finally met a species it could not break. 2 days passed after Captain Vasquez returned to her ship. The Prometheus remained motionless in space, its running lights blinking slowly in the darkness. The Council flotilla maintained its formation, though the confident arrangement had taken on a defensive quality. Ships that had been spread wide to demonstrate power now clustered closer together, as if seeking comfort in numbers. Ambassador Velketh spent those 2 days in constant communication with the Council. He transmitted his recordings of the conversation. He sent detailed sensor readings of the human vessel. He described Captain Vasquez and her strange mixture of warmth and steel. The Council's response was predictable. Disbelief at first, then anger, then demands for action. Several elder species called for immediate military demonstration. Show the humans what Council power really meant. Remind them of their place. Velketh listened to these demands with growing unease. He had stood in the same room as Captain Vasquez. He had looked into her eyes. His fellow Council members had not. On the morning of the 3rd day, he received orders. The Council demanded a demonstration of force. Nothing too aggressive. Just enough to remind humanity that their single ship, however impressive, could not stand against the combined might of 47 Council warships. Velketh prepared his flotilla. He arranged the ships in attack formation. He ordered all weapons charged and ready. When everything was in place, he opened a channel to the Prometheus. "Captain Vasquez," he said, "the Council has considered your words. They wish to respond with a demonstration of their own. This is not an attack. It is merely a display. Please do not misunderstand our intentions." Vasquez's face appeared on his screen. She looked the same as always, calm, patient, slightly amused. "Please proceed." Velketh gave the signal. 47 ships opened fire, not at the Prometheus, but at empty space beside it. Energy beams lanced out in perfect coordination. Missiles streaked through the void. Kinetic rounds accelerated to incredible speeds. The combined firepower of the flotilla created a storm of destruction that could have cracked a moon in half. The display lasted 30 seconds. When it ended, a vast cloud of superheated debris and radiation filled the target zone. "Impressive," Vasquez said quietly. Velketh felt a small surge of hope. Perhaps the demonstration had achieved its purpose. Perhaps the humans would reconsider. "The Council commands significant resources," he said. "This was merely a fraction of our total capability." "I appreciate the transparency." Vasquez tilted her head slightly. "Would you like to see what the Prometheus can do?" The question caught Velketh off guard. He hesitated, uncertain. Then, curiosity won over caution. "Yes," he said. "I believe that would be appropriate." Vasquez nodded. "Please observe." What happened next would be studied and discussed in Council war academies for generations to come. It would become the subject of legends and nightmares. It would change the way the galaxy understood the concept of weapons. The Prometheus began to move. It was not a dramatic acceleration. The ship simply shifted, rotating slowly until its bow faced the same empty region the Council had targeted. Then it fired. A single beam of energy erupted from the ship's spine. It was not light, exactly. It was something deeper, something that hurt to look at. The beam crossed the distance to the target zone in an instant. Where the Council's combined firepower had created a cloud of debris, the Prometheus created nothing. The beam simply erased everything it touched. Matter vanished. A perfect sphere of emptiness appeared in space, kilometers across. The beam shut off. Silence filled the communication channels. "That was our primary spinal weapon," Vasquez said. Her voice remained conversational. "We call it a singularity projector. It creates a temporary artificial black hole at the point of impact. Very effective against heavily armored targets." Velketh could not speak. His tactical officer was making small sounds of distress. "This is our secondary system," Vasquez continued. The Prometheus fired again. This time, thousands of smaller projectiles launched from ports across its hull. They accelerated instantly, far faster than any missile Velketh had ever seen. They reached the target zone and detonated. The explosions were beautiful and terrible. Each one was a tiny sun burning with antimatter fury. The combined light was brighter than a star. "Antimatter cascade warheads," Vasquez explained, "designed to overwhelm point defense systems through sheer volume. We can fire approximately 12,000 per minute." 12,000 per minute. The Prometheus was not finished. Its hull began to glow. Strange patterns of light raced across its surface. The very fabric of space around the ship seemed to ripple and distort. "Our defensive screens," Vasquez said. "Multiple overlapping shield harmonics, adaptive response algorithms, self-repairing matrix." As if to demonstrate, the Prometheus turned its bow toward Velketh's flotilla. For one horrible moment, he thought it was preparing to attack. Instead, the ship simply sat there, shields blazing, weapons ports glowing with contained energy. "Ambassador," Vasquez said gently, "I want you to understand something. The Prometheus is 30 years old. She is the oldest Titan-class ship in our fleet. Our newest vessels are significantly more powerful. This monster was outdated by human standards. The Federation currently maintains 7 active Titan-class dreadnoughts," Vasquez continued. "We have 12 more under construction. We also have approximately 300 heavy cruisers, 800 destroyers, and over 2,000 smaller combat vessels." The numbers washed over Velketh like cold water. The Council had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years, with fleets that numbered in the hundreds. Humanity had built thousands of warships in less than 3 centuries. "This is not meant to frighten you," Vasquez said. Her voice carried a note of genuine regret. "I take no pleasure in this display. I wish it were not necessary." "Then why?" Velketh managed to ask. "Why show us this?" "Because I want you to make an informed decision." The human captain leaned forward slightly. "The Council can choose to be our enemy. You have the power to declare war and send your fleets against us. Nothing I say can stop you." She paused. "But I want you to understand what that war would look like. I want you to understand what humanity is capable of. Not because I want to threaten you, because I want to prevent a tragedy." Velketh looked at the Prometheus. He looked at its weapons and its shields and its ancient scarred hull. He thought about his 47 ships and what they would accomplish against this single vessel. Nothing. They would accomplish nothing. "We do not want war," Vasquez said softly. "We have had enough war. We have seen what it costs. We have buried too many of our own people to ever glorify violence again." Her eyes met his through the view screen. "But we will defend ourselves. Make no mistake about that. We will defend ourselves with everything we have." She smiled, that sad, gentle smile. "We have quite a lot." The communication channel remained open, but neither of them spoke. There was nothing left to say. The demonstration was complete. Velketh sat in his command chair and stared at the impossible ship before him. He thought about the Council and their 12,000 years of supremacy. He thought about their pride and their certainty and their absolute conviction that they could never be challenged. He thought about how wrong they had been. Then he began composing his report. It would not be pleasant reading for the Council elders, but they needed to know the truth. They needed to understand what humanity really was. The Council chamber had not heard silence like this in 3,000 years. 7 elder species sat in their designated positions around the great circular hall. Their representatives had gathered to hear Ambassador Velketh's report. They had expected a routine briefing about a primitive species that would soon bow before council authority. They had not expected this. Velketh stood in the center of the chamber. His crystal body caught the light from 100 floating lamps. He had been speaking for nearly 6 hours. He had shown sensor recordings. He had played communication logs. He had presented tactical analyses prepared by his best officers. Now he was finished. Now he waited for the council's response. Elder Thorath of the Veth Collective was the first to speak. His massive insectoid body shifted on its platform as his mandibles clicked together. "This is impossible," he declared. "No species develops this quickly. No civilization builds weapons like this without thousands of years of advancement. The humans must be lying. These readings must be false." "The readings are accurate," Velketh replied. "I verified them personally. Multiple officers confirmed my observations. The human vessel is exactly what it appears to be." "Then we must destroy them now," came from Council Representative Kathval of the Sinari. He was Velketh's superior, a crystal being of great age and greater pride. "Before they become a true threat, send the combined fleets. Crush them while we still can." "With respect, Representative, that would be unwise." Velketh kept his voice calm. "The humans have 7 of these Titan-class ships. They have thousands of smaller vessels. And they have been building these weapons for 300 years. We have 12,000 years of experience." "Experience at what?" Velketh asked quietly. "Conquering species that could not fight back? Bullying civilizations that lacked the will to resist? When did the Council last fight a real war? When did we last face an enemy that could truly challenge us?" The chamber fell silent again. "The humans have never stopped fighting," Velketh continued. "They fought each other. They destroyed their own worlds. They rebuilt and destroyed again. They learned lessons that we have never needed to learn. They developed weapons that we cannot match, because they had enemies that demanded such weapons." He let his words sink in. "And now they have stopped fighting. After centuries of endless war, they have finally found peace among themselves. They are united, focused, ready." He looked around the chamber at the elder species who had ruled for so long. "If we attack them, we will not be facing a divided enemy. We will be facing a species that has mastered war itself." "Then what do you suggest?" asked Elder Merca of the Floating Ones. Her gaseous form rippled with anxiety. "Should we simply let them grow stronger? Wait until they come for us?" "No." Velketh shook his head slowly. "I suggest we do something unprecedented. I suggest we treat them as equals." The reaction was immediate and loud. Several representatives shouted protests. Others laughed in disbelief. The concept of treating a species barely 3 centuries old as equals to the ancient council powers was absurd, offensive, unthinkable. Velketh waited for the noise to subside. "I have met Captain Vasquez," he said. "I have spoken with her at length. I have looked into her eyes and seen what lies behind them." "And what is that?" Elder Thorath demanded. "Exhaustion." The word seemed to surprise the council. "These humans are tired, elders. They have been fighting for so long that they have forgotten what peace feels like. They built those terrible weapons because they had no choice. They fought those endless wars because they could not stop themselves." He stepped forward, his crystal form ringing softly with each movement. "But they have stopped now. They have finally achieved the peace they always wanted. And do you know what they want more than anything else?" No one answered. "They want to keep it," Velketh said. "They want friends who will respect their borders and trade fairly and leave them alone to enjoy the peace they worked so hard to achieve. They do not want to conquer us. They do not want to destroy us. They simply want to exist without being threatened." "How can you know this?" Representative Kathval asked. His voice was harsh with doubt. "Because Captain Vasquez told me so. And more importantly, because I believe her. Velketh looked at his superior directly.
She could have destroyed my entire flotilla without effort. She did not. She could have demanded our surrender.
She could have been arrogant and cruel and contemptuous. Instead, she was polite, patient, kind. He paused. She warned us, elders. She showed us what humanity could do. But she also showed us what humanity chooses to do. And right now, they choose peace. The council debated for 11 days. Factions formed and dissolved. Arguments raged across the chamber. Old alliances crumbled as species reconsidered their positions. In the end, the decision came down to a simple calculation. War with humanity might be winnable, it might not. But even victory would cost more than the council could afford. Their fleets would be shattered, their populations devastated. Their 12,000-year reign would end regardless of the outcome. Peace, on the other hand, costs nothing but pride. The council sent a second delegation to humanity. This time, there were no warships, no formations of supremacy. Just a single diplomatic vessel carrying representatives who came to talk, not to threaten. Captain Vasquez met them personally. She was still polite, still patient, still gentle in that way that made powerful beings feel small. The negotiations took 3 months. When they were finished, humanity had what they wanted: equal standing in galactic affairs, respected borders, fair trade agreements, no tribute, no limitations, no submission. The council accepted these terms because they had no real choice. But over time, something unexpected happened. They began to appreciate their new neighbors. Humanity brought things to the galaxy that no other species had offered. Art and music that was wild and passionate. Science that approached old problems from new angles. Philosophy that questioned everything and accepted nothing without proof. Something that the elder species had forgotten they were missing. Hope. For 12,000 years, the council had maintained order. They had prevented wars and managed resources and kept the galaxy stable. But they had not dreamed. They had not reached for anything beyond what they already had. Humans dreamed. Humans built impossible ships and developed impossible weapons because they refused to accept limitations. They had turned their violent nature against itself and emerged stronger than anyone thought possible. If they could do that, what else might be possible? Elder Mirka of the Floating Ones spoke about it at a council meeting, 50 years after first contact. We feared them, she said. We saw their weapons and their scars, and we thought they were monsters. But they are not monsters. They are survivors. They walked through fire and came out the other side still hoping for something better. She paused, her gaseous form shimmering with emotion. Perhaps that is what we needed. Not an enemy to fear, but an example to follow. Perhaps it is time for the council to start dreaming again. The motion passed unanimously. And if the other species noticed that humanity kept building Titan-class dreadnoughts, each one larger and more powerful than the last, they chose not to comment. Some neighbors, after all, you simply learn to respect. And some friendships are worth more than pride. The humans had earned both.